Greetings, everyone. Welcome to having a little technical difficulties this morning, which is unfortunately since I'm the tech guy. Here we go. Okay. Welcome to Dzogchen Town Hall as we meet every Sunday morning for this. Today, we're pleased to have Lama Roger Walsh with us, who will be leading us. First, I want to talk about a couple of things coming up. One is one that I've registered for and I'm really looking forward to, and that's the first virtual retreat we've had in several years, since before COVID. And that's going to be on the West Coast in October. And here we go. Sorry for the delay, but we've got this nice little presentation, nice little poster. Okay, it's October 22nd through October 27th. And we also have announced the beginning of our new series of master classes, which they run, let's see here. Pull that one up. They run from September through April of the coming year. This is the fourth time, is it, that he's done these master classes, and they give everyone a chance to get a little deeper into the Lama's teachings and his theology, philosophy, the way his brain works. And talking about brains, we have Lama Roger with us today, who's a treat. We haven't had him on board for a while. And with that, let me turn it over to Lama Roger.
Well, thanks very much, Mel. And thank you for handling the tech stuff that makes this possible. Somehow, by some miracle that I have no comprehension of, here we are from around the country, perhaps around the world, and meeting in this way. So let's just take a moment to just be grateful for this incredible opportunity. You know, one of the things the Buddha said was that one of the great gifts of life was to be with like-minded seekers, explorers. So here we have this opportunity. Even though we're scattered across the country, we haven't had to walk for days or weeks to be with each other. We just somehow click this switch on the computer, and by some absolute magic, here we are. So, so we can be grateful. Let's see. Let's begin by looking at the bodhicitta. Refuge in bodhicitta. And let's have the English there. Great. So this is a core statement of two of the main foundational practices of of Buddhism, that the idea that we can take refuge, that we can draw strength, resource, support from three sources: from the Buddha, however we understand that, from the Dharma, however we understand that, and from the spiritual community, however we understand that. And of course, as with any profound idea, these can be understood at many different levels. So let's just chant this together first in Buddha, Dharma, and supreme spiritual community. We go for refuge until fully enlightened by the power of all six perfections, from generosity to non-dual wisdom, for the sake of all beings. May we realize Buddhahood. So it's very easy just to say those words, but if we reflect on them, they take added power. And in practice, often there's a process of first reading or reciting something, and then reflecting on it, and then meditating on it. The idea, we go from just taking in the words to reflecting, to analyzing, to looking at the implications and associations. And then we use the conceptual mind for that, and then we set the conceptual mind aside just for a pure intuitive opening, resting in awareness, and allowing those thoughts to work their magic on us in ways we really don't understand. Of course, we don't understand most of how the mind works, but somehow there's an added mystery, because there's a depth to what's going on that can be very powerful. So, so we say we're taking refuge in the Buddha, but is that a person who lived and died 2,500 years ago? Is it Buddha nature, the fundamental nature of reality that one can awaken to? Is it our Buddha nature? What is it we're taking refuge in? And in Dharma, we take refuge in the Dharma. Or what's another way of saying refuge? We draw sustenance from. We find support in. We are nourished by the Dharma, which can be interpreted as just a set of teachings. It can be recognized as the principles of living a skillful life. It can be recognized as profound wisdom, insight, understanding into the way things are. It can also be held as the fundamental nature of reality, that there is a fundamental, deeper nature to reality, which we have, by virtue of being humans, the capacity of directly sensing, feeling into, and eventually uniting with. And not even uniting, a recognizing as our fundamental nature. And we take refuge in the supreme spiritual community. This now worldwide community of people who are dedicating their lives to the good, to that which is most beneficial, to that which is most conducive to a full, beneficent, kind, loving, compassionate, and wise way of being and living in the world. And so we go for nourishment to these three things, or to our Buddha nature, to fundamental nature, and to our community of like-minded people And we go, it says, until fully enlightened, until we realize that we realize our Buddha nature, until we realize the fundamental nature of reality and realize that that is our deepest fundamental nature. And to the spiritual community, till we recognize, we see through the illusion of separateness, and that same nature rests in each and every one of these people. And in going for nourishment to these three things, we practice 6 qualities of heart and mind, the so-called paramitas or perfections, the great qualities of heart and mind that have been found most conducive to enabling a human being to live as fully and effectively and wisely and compassionately and profoundly as possible. Amazing that over thousands of years, people have recognized these qualities as the most beneficial of all heart and qualities of heart and mind to cultivate. Amazing that great people over centuries have done this exploratory work, recognized this, and are able to transmit and teach it to us. So we practice these 6 qualities, starting with generosity and ethics and forbearance, not responding with anger and hatred when we are spited or someone does or says something that doesn't feel good. So we practice being generous, open-hearted, letting go and giving what we can. We practice ethics, living in a way which is most conducive to the welfare and awakening of all. And there's an interesting thing about ethics, and actually all these perfections, that when we first start them, it feels like ethical living can be a sacrifice. We're giving up something to do the right thing. But a much deeper understanding recognizes that ethical living is living in congruence with our fundamental nature and with the Dharma, and in the way which best supports our lives and our communities. So, whoops, can we get that back, Mel? There we go. So by the power of all 6 perfections, generosity, ethical living, which as we deepen our understanding of it, we realize is not a sacrifice, it's actually enlightened self-interest, because it's the way of living which is most conducive to a positive life in all ways for ourselves and for others. We practice ardency, a firmness of heart and mind, committing ourselves to the practice. We do these practices wholeheartedly as we can. And we practice meditation, concentration, meditation. And it culminates in non-dual wisdom, in prajna. And this is prajna paramita, the virtue of wisdom, which sees most deeply into the fundamental nature of our experience and of reality. And why do we do all this? Well, one, to have the best possible lives for ourselves, but for the sake of all beings. We do it for everyone. Because as we deepen our understanding, we recognize we're not separate from anyone else. And that to practice for oneself alone only reinforces the egocentricity we're trying to release. So we practice for the sake of all beings. And for the sake of all beings, we aspire to reaching Buddhahood, the acme, the peak of the cultivation of beneficial qualities, the deep awakening, the vast heart opening, the purity of intent, the commitment to the highest good. All these we aspire to. And as we aspire, as we practice towards this aspiration, then we take refuge, we go for nourishment in our Buddha nature, the Buddha nature, in the way things are and the understanding of it, and to our community. So here we are in our community. And let's just touch into, so that's the usual refuge in bodhicitta, but there are ones that are the more advanced ones. And let's just take a look at those. So if you could move us on to the next one. Thanks, Mel. This is the inner refuge in bodhicitta. So here we go for refuge. We seek nourishment in the empty and open essence, which is Dharmakaya, or pure awareness. So in our practice, we rest in awareness. And as you know, from just resting in awareness, there is a deep nourishment that comes from that, and a purification of the heart and mind, and a spontaneous cultivation and strengthening of virtues, of positive qualities of heart and mind. We take refuge in the radiant, lucid nature. We find that awareness has a radiance, a lucidity to it. And we also find that we take refuge in the manifesting compassionate responsiveness. We find something really beautiful, that when we rest in awareness, there is an automatic tendency to respond in skillful, appropriate, helpful, beneficent ways. And that's the compassionate manifesting. I take refuge, I find nourishment by recognizing and resting in this threefold innate Buddha-ness that is the true nature of mind, that is our true nature. So what a wonderful recognition to be transmitted to us, that if we can simply rest in awareness, in our true nature, that out of that, simply resting in awareness, comes the cultivation of the qualities of heart and mind we seek, and the spontaneous desire to help others see this, be relieved of suffering, live as well as possible. And as we recognize that, suddenly the path goes from one of, the path can so often feel like a struggle, but there's a certain point at which you recognize that as we learn to rest in awareness, in our true nature, these practices become spontaneous expressions of our true nature. how we see we want to live. That's the best possible way of living. So let's take let's do something different. I've been talking for a while. Let's see if there are any comments or questions that people have. Anyone like to comment or question about what's traditionally called refuge and bodhicitta?
If there are any comments or questions, you can send them via the chat to me at Dzogchen Foundation.
Yeah, and you can also, and we can Mel, can we also do them verbally?
I can arrange that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's see, someone put a question here. Yeah. So, Janie, would you like to ask that, or would you just like me to read it?
I'll have to unmute us for a moment here.
Okay, so let's see.
Okay, now. Now. Okay, now you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
So, Edward, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed to ask, but I mean, when I first heard of the Bodhisattva vow, I mean, I had two reactions. I was, young, not that means anything, but I just thought, well, it's a noble thought. It's naive. and the other thought another thought I had was that the idea of coming back, quote unquote, coming back to this earth, lifetime upon lifetime. And I suppose maybe you're irreversible at some point, but to come back and fall into this quote hell or, samsara, is like, I don't know if I want to stick around for eons and billions of years and go through this, I mean, really now, so, I mean, those are my thoughts, and I'm sure they're mistaken, but, that is, I still, it's still like, oh, I'm going to take this bodhisattva vow. Yeah. No, I don't, I'm iffy on it, as I say, but anyway, if you can elucidate that in any manner.
Yeah. Well, I totally understand. This was first really, pushed, or I was really introduced to it most strongly when Sura introduced, brought a very traditional Tibetan Lama along. And, this was just this bodhisattva aspiration was a recitation at the beginning of every practice. And I was like, this is, no. Finally, I stood up and said, it's took me years to be able to commit to being with and serving one being, my wife. I'm not ready for all beings. He was not impressed. I think you're getting at something here that's important in several ways, Edward. One is the bodhisattva aspiration is an ideal, and there are skillful and unskillful ways of holding ideals. The unskillful way is, this is something I have to reach and become. And it's easy to get attached to it and then judge, and it's easy to judge ourselves against that ideal. A much more skillful way of holding the bodhisattva aspiration, and I like aspiration as opposed to the word vow, is to, and this is true of any ideal, it's useful to see ideals as kind of north stars or compasses. That's the direction I want my life to go in. I want more love and kindness and compassion and insight. I want to be more effective in helping people. And then it becomes an inspiration. If it's held as, I vow to come back, and serve all beings, it's like, yeah, that just feels overwhelming. So I think way I've come to understand not only the bodhisattva aspiration, but also ideals, is, as Pema Chodron says, see it as a North Star. See it as a pointer, a direction for one's life. And that I find very helpful. Yeah. Thanks so much, Ed.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Let's see. So I'm assuming that that since these are written up, someone would like them read. Let's see, is the true nature of me the same as the true nature of you or others? That's from Janie. Simple answer, yes. Yeah, the deeper we go, the more that universality we find. Underneath our little personalities and our egos, we find that that's a very superficial layer of mind. And that the deeper we go, the more we rest in an awareness which we recognize as universal. And let's see, from Winston, does the ability to rest in Rigpa and recognize the nature of mind achieve the path of seeing? Let's see, does the ability to rest in Rigpa and recognize nature of mind achieve the path of seeing need to be cultivated again and again in every human rebirth, or will there be subtle karmic seeds and mind streams that make it happen naturally? Well, I don't know about reincarnation, so I just know a little bit about this incarnation. And I do know that each time we practice, we do cultivate these qualities. We do strengthen virtues. We do inhibit, decondition problematic neuroses, etc. And so that's enough. That's enough for me. I hold death as great as in the words of Ram Dass, the great mystery. Do we come back? Don't know. Where? Don't know, etc. So, yeah. But the Buddha gave an answer to that question. He said, well, how would you want to live? Someone asked him a similar question about, what's carried over and why should he practice? And his answer was, well, if it was just this lifetime, how would you want to live? And it was many lifetimes. How would you want to live? And the same answer. So, which simplifies things a lot. Okay. Let's see, and there are some notices up there from Menla too. Okay. All right. So let's go to some practice. Let's put these into practice. All right. So get yourself settled. Find a posture that works for you. Might even move around just a little bit and find that center place where you're just at ease with the back relatively straight, which maintains alertness, and the rest of the body really relaxed. And now let's set our aspiration for practice. Let's set an aspiration as per the refuge bodhicitta. Let's set an aspiration for Buddhahood. That is to become Buddhas, to become fully awake, to cultivate all benevolent qualities, all beneficial qualities of heart and mind, and to bring them to deep, really strengthen them. And let's go the whole way. Let's make an aspiration for Buddhahood. That is to become fully awake and to bring all benevolent qualities to fruition. Now, see if you set that intention or aspiration and notice what happens. Just check around in your body, mind, and see what the response is to setting that really dramatic ideal. And you might find that there's a sense of inspiration. Or, as with almost any practice, when you practice a quality or virtue, you get it, either it or you get the barriers to it. So you might notice, as you set an aspiration for Buddhahood, a sense of tension and contraction in the body somewhere. Or you might find an aversion to the very idea of doing that practice. And notice what thoughts are in the mind as you think of committing yourself to being a Buddha, becoming a Buddha. Notice the thoughts, notice the feelings in the body, notice any muscle tension, contractions. And there may well be thoughts like, I can't do that. That's too much. I could never become a Buddha. That's impossible. And step back and just allow those thoughts to be. These are limiting beliefs. These are beliefs we have that limit our capacities and strengths. And they are just thoughts. But they are very important thoughts because self-limiting beliefs act like self-fulfilling prophecies. If we believe we can't do something, we probably can't. So just notice any limiting beliefs you have about the possibility that you could become a Buddha. And now recognize those are just thoughts. When they aren't recognized as thoughts, they control and limit and constrict you. When they are recognized as thoughts, they don't have an impact on you. Okay? When we don't recognize limiting beliefs, they self-hypnotize us. When we do recognize them, we de-hypnotize ourselves. This is a very, very, very important principle, applicable not just to the bodhisattva aspiration, but to all sorts of aspirations. So notice, so just see again about setting the intention for Buddhahood. Notice any reactions. Let them be there. Accept them. Welcome them. They're coming to light. How wonderful. They're coming to the healing light of awareness. Any contraction, any constriction, any limiting beliefs, wonderful. Welcome them. Thank you for showing yourself. In recognizing them, you can become freer from them. Wonderful. Take a few breaths. Relax. Good. Relax now. Now, at the moment, We've just raised the bodhisattva aspiration to be the fullest possible expression of who we really are. Now, just bring that aspiration down to earth. Think of the aspiration that everyone here has. You wouldn't be wasting your time here if you didn't. Everyone has the aspiration to cultivate positive qualities, to live as well and as helpfully and beneficially as possible. How beautiful. Yum, yum, yum. Okay. So now just think of a quality of heart and mind, a capacity, a virtue, a strength, some quality of heart and mind that you feel would be particularly helpful for you to strengthen. Could be love, could be kindness, could be generosity, could be concentration, whatever. You've probably thought of it already. Okay, and now think of someone who really exemplifies and embodies that quality of heart-mind. Could be someone you know, could be someone you know of, could be an historical figure, could be an archetype. And now, see that person in front of you. See this person who embodies this strength, this quality, this virtue in front of you. And now visualize that person melting inward, that they melt inward into a radiant ball of light. And bring that ball of light over your head. And now let it come down through the crown chakra, down the spine, until it reaches the heart. And when that ball of light reaches the heart, it explodes through your body, mind, filling it with that quality and that light. And that quality which you thought you needed is now one of your great strengths. And see your body, mind illuminated, filled, infiltrated with that quality, that strength. And notice if there's a particular body posture that tends to go with that strength. And see if you can exaggerate it a little bit so you really have that sense of strength. You might shift your body slightly, just and maybe there's a facial expression or a slight smile or something. Just let yourself have that. And now you have a somatic representation of this strength. So you're locking that strength in, not only as a felt sense, but as a somatic feeling and as a somatic posture. Okay. So see if you can gently hold this posture as we continue to do the practice. Good. So now you've made an aspiration for Buddhahood. You've recognized the limiting beliefs that get in the way of even thinking you could aspire to that. Now you've developed a strength or capacity or virtue which will enable you to live into that ideal more fully. And now let's go beyond even the limitations of a separate sense or egoic identity. Now, see if you can feel a self sense. In my case, a Roger somewhere, a sense of being me. And now let's explore, see if there is such a thing. So now check through your legs and see if you find any self there, or even any self-representation. And now check in the pelvis and the abdomen. Do you find a self there? And what about the chest? Is there a self there? Now, this is interesting. You might find that there was a presupposition of some self there, some self sense. Check closely. Look really closely. Is there a self, or is there even a self sense? If there's a self sense, what is it? And you'll probably find it's a sense of contraction and tension. Now notice the arms. Explore the arms. Is there a self in the arms? And what about the head? Is there a self in the head? Now, for a lot of us, there's an assumption that there is. A little person sitting behind the eyes. So look, check it out. Is there really a self there? And is there even a self-sense? Well, there might be. There might have been a subtle image you were holding of someone behind your eyes. Or there might have been a subtle felt sense. If so, check it out. And what you find is it's an unexamined presupposition. The ego, the separate self-sense, is an unexamined presupposition. The more we look, the less we find it. But what remains? Check what remains now. What remains is awareness. And you have just shifted from practicing as a separate self-sense to practicing as awareness. You've made what's called a great crossing over from the belief it's a little separate self meditating to the recognition that awareness is. Awareness is meditating. And just rest as that. Because one of the great discoveries is that once you drop into awareness, you literally don't have to do anything. It's only when we're not in awareness that we think we have to do. So rest as awareness. And really rest. What a relief. If we really let in the idea that we don't have to do anything, it's such a relief. I've been sitting for 40 years, and the most recurrent recognition and discovery of all that time has been, oh, I don't have to do that. Now, okay, so you're resting as awareness. Now, but there's awareness and there's awakened awareness. Awareness doesn't have degrees, but the layers of the psyche over it can give the sense of it can give us greater alertness, clarity, etc. So first, just check your energy level. And it's possible when you first fall into awareness, you can just, you may lose. There can be either excitement or there can be a kind of relaxing and a fatigue. We're not used to just really relaxing. So notice if there's excitement, agitation of any kind, just gently relax a little more. If there's a sense of fatigue, just maybe straighten the back, take a few deep breaths. Good. Okay, and now we've just been holding open awareness, or actually open awareness has been holding us. But now engage the mind again and just look at something, some specific object in your environment. Just find something to look at and then just look at it. Notice it. Now really look at it. Really look at it closely. See the detail. Bring a focused, intent, clear. Really look at this. Notice all the things you missed before when you really look. Great. Now come back to awareness. Open, relaxed awareness. Now really be aware. Really be aware. Alert. Clear. Intense, not in a forcing way, but just really clear. Noticing. Alert. Feel the difference. See the difference. That's the difference between ordinary awareness and awakened awareness. Okay. Now hold the balance here. Be really alert, aware, and relaxed at the same time. Okay. So you're really alert. You're in awakened awareness. Crystalline, clear, sharp, lucid. Perhaps you'll even get a sense of luminosity with it. Open like space, like the sky. And really alert and relaxed. See if you can play with that balance. And if you get lost in a thought or fantasy, there are two ways of doing it. The usual way is to push it aside and pull the mind back to what we were doing. But the other way is simply to relax. Relax back into awakened awareness. So something comes up, we get lost into it. Just relax. It dissolves. And we're back where we always were. Always right here. But right here, alert, aware, awakened awareness. Sharp, clear, boundless. Notice awareness. Look for any boundaries. You can't find them. Ah, beautiful. Okay. And as we're coming towards the end of our sitting, take a moment now to re-engage the conceptual mind and reflect back over this sitting and just think of 2 or 3 things you learned that you really want to take away with you. What are 2 or 3 things you really want to take away with you? Give them names so you remember them. Good. And perhaps after the session is over, you'll want to write those down. Good. Wonderful. So we covered a lot of ground there. We looked into the what's traditionally called the refuge and bodhicitta. Then we actually worked with it in very practical ways. Making the bodhisattva aspiration, but doing it in a skillful way, holding it as an aspiration, and seeing all the, well, at least some of the limiting beliefs that and constrictions and contractions that come up in the face of making such a bold aspiration. We recognize that those limiting beliefs are only thoughts. And when we don't recognize them, we're hypnotized by them. When we do recognize them, we dehypnotize ourselves. So we did that. We we explored the self-sense and found that the more closely we looked, the more it dissolved, which left us resting in awareness. And then we looked at something, and then we really looked at it to see the difference. And then we brought that difference back to our sitting to shift from ordinary awareness to a more lucid, awakened awareness. So we covered a lot. Anyone like to comment or question?
Lama Roger, I think you have a couple of questions that if you go into the general chat, you can see those.
I can.
Got Jaylee Toller and Winston Abe that have questions in there.
Why am I not seeing that? Okay.
Should be
Okay, and
right.
if anyone would like to say their question. Why am I not seeing that?
All right, well, the first one says, is the true nature of me the same as the true nature of you or others?
Yeah, I think we answered that.
Okay, the next one was, does the ability to rest?
Yeah, I think we looked at that too.
Got
So I
those.
think we've answered those. So if anyone want to comment or question? Edward, you back?
Yeah, trying to unmute here. Um, I just finished reading, I think it's Seeing with Naked Awareness, and it helped, I think, the nickel drop about, you know, ordinary mind being extraordinary, because I guess I had the thought that, well, yeah, I the thing is to look with ordinary mind, and not with the overlay of conditioning and all that. And then I thought that, well, is that somehow just a continuation of the quote boring world? And then I thought, no, it's not, So, I mean, you could comment on this, or I mean, so really seeing or really listening, and I had a kind of amazing awareness about really listening, but I won't take time and go into that. But so what would you say about, when you're really seeing or really hearing, then that is of a different order than, just your regular seeing or hearing. I mean, if you understand what I'm saying, but I'm sure you do, but I'm not saying it very well. Anyhow.
Well, I think we just experienced that for ourselves, that most of the time our awareness is pretty dull, and that it's quite possible with very little effort, just a tiny moment of intention, to become much more present and just find a whole host of things in our awareness that we were overlooking. So, yeah, I think that's a capacity that's available to us at any time. I think we saw that for ourselves during this session.
Well, I'll go on just briefly that I had sort of an epiphany this morning. I was rereading The Idea of Order. I chatted you personally. The Idea of Order at Key West by Wallace Stevens. A magnificent poem. The Idea of Order at Key West, Wallace Stevens. And that, that making of the world apart from any preconception about it, is illustrated in that poem, I think. And so I got it at a deeper level. I was relating it to the Garden of Eden and naming and dominion and yada, yada, and the ox herding picture, the last one. Anyway, so I'm just rattling on, but anyway, for what it's worth, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're very close to the end here. Menla, Mel, is there anything that needs to be said for the organization, or shall I close?
Well, I would give the usual reminders to please donate to the Dzogchen Foundation. You'll find links in the chat, some of the chats that I sent out, and remind you again to register for the upcoming retreat. Lama Roger, would you like to close it out?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, and I hope we'll look forward to seeing some of you at that retreat. I hope to be there. And yeah, let's just take a moment to feel gratitude for the opportunity of being together and doing these practices together. And may our good fortune and all we've experienced and learned together serve our welfare and awakening, and enable us to better serve the welfare and awakening of all. Thank you so much for the opportunity of being with you. And hope maybe see you next week. I think I'm on next week too.